Before this video started, before your finger touched the screen, before your mind even decided to click, there was already something weighing on you. Something you haven't fully said out loud. A quiet ache, a question that keeps repeating in your head when the room gets silent. Why is this happening to me? And deeper than that, did I do something wrong? You've been strong for everyone else. You've smiled when you didn't feel like smiling. You've said, "I'm okay," when you were anything but okay. You've tried to stay positive. You've tried to have faith. But lately, the weight feels different, heavier, more personal. And somewhere in your heart, a thought slipped in. Is this punishment? If that thought has crossed your mind even once, stay here, because what you are going through is not punishment. And today, that lie ends. The lie of divine retribution. Many people grow up believing that when something goes wrong, God must be upset. When doors close, it must be judgment. When finances shrink, it must be discipline. When relationships break, it must be consequence. So naturally, when life feels unstable, you search your memory. You replay conversations. You revisit mistakes. You examine old choices. You ask, was it that decision? Was it that sin? Was it that moment I didn't listen? But listen carefully. Correction and punishment are not the same thing. Punishment is about repayment. Correction is about redirection. Punishment says, you deserve this. Correction says, I'm guiding you. And preparation says, you're growing. What you are in right now is growth. It doesn't feel comfortable because growth stretches you beyond your familiar limits. And stretching feels like breaking before it feels like strengthening. The season you didn't expect. This wasn't how you imagined things. You had a timeline. You had a vision. You thought by now you'd be further ahead, more stable, more secure, more settled. Instead, you're navigating uncertainty. Maybe it's financial pressure. Maybe it's emotional exhaustion. Maybe it's a relationship that changed without warning. Maybe it's a dream that hasn't unfolded the way you prayed. And because it doesn't match your expectation, you assume something is wrong. But what if this season isn't a setback? What if it's a restructuring? You cannot carry old patterns into new blessings. You cannot step into higher levels with lower understanding. Sometimes what feels like loss is simply release. And release always feels empty before it feels freeing. When silence feels like abandonment. Let's talk about the silence, because that's the part no one likes to admit. You prayed, not casually, not once, but sincerely. You asked for help. You asked for clarity. You asked for relief. And it seemed like nothing shifted. That silence can be dangerous, because silence allows doubt to speak. And doubt whispers, if God cared, this wouldn't be happening. But silence does not mean absence. When a teacher gives a test, they are silent not because they left the room, but because they trust what they taught. Growth often happens in quiet spaces. Seeds do not break through the soil immediately. First, they grow downward. Roots develop in darkness before fruit appears in light. If everything in your life was visible right now, you would panic, because transformation is messy before it's magnificent. You are not being crushed. You are being refined. Gold does not fear fire, because fire does not destroy gold, it removes impurities. Pressure does not ruin diamonds, it creates them. But here's what no one tells you. While gold is in fire, it doesn't feel refined. While carbon is under pressure, it doesn't feel valuable. Transformation feels like tension. You feel stretched because your capacity is expanding. You feel challenged because your strength is developing. You feel uncertain because your dependence is shifting from yourself to something higher. If this were punishment, it would break you, but you're still here, still breathing, still hoping, still trying. That means this season is not destruction, it's construction. The doors that closed. Some of you are grieving doors that shut, opportunities you wanted, people you trusted, situations you thought were permanent. You prayed for that relationship. You worked for that position. You believed in that future. And when it ended, it felt personal. But sometimes protection looks like rejection. You cannot see the full picture from where you stand. You only see the loss. But what if the door closed because staying would have cost you more? What if delay saved you from devastation? What if what ended was actually limiting your growth? You assumed it was punishment, but it may have been preservation. The internal shift. Right now, something is shifting inside you. You may not notice it loudly, but you're thinking differently, responding differently, becoming less reactive, more reflective. Pain has a way of stripping away illusion. You are learning what truly matters. You are discovering your resilience. You are realizing you survived things you once thought would destroy you. That is not punishment. That is awakening. Why this had to happen. Some lessons cannot be taught gently. Some growth cannot occur comfortably. You prayed for strength. Strength requires resistance. You prayed for wisdom. Wisdom requires experience. You prayed for clarity. Clarity often comes after confusion. The very things you asked for are forming, just not in the way you imagined. And that's where trust enters. Trust is believing there is purpose even when you don't see the pattern. The breaking point that builds you. There was a moment recently when you felt like giving up. You didn't announce it, you didn't post about it, but you felt it. The exhaustion, the frustration, the quiet tears. But you didn't quit. That matters, because resilience isn't loud. It's choosing to continue when it would be easier to stop. And every time you choose to continue, something inside you strengthens. That strengthening is proof. This is not punishment. This is preparation. There is another layer to what you're experiencing, and this one is deeper. What if the discomfort you feel is not situational, but transformational? Because sometimes the hardest seasons aren't about changing your circumstances. They're about changing your identity. You cannot walk into a new level thinking like your old self. You cannot carry insecurity into purpose. You cannot bring fear into destiny. And you cannot step into expansion while still believing you are small. So something had to shake. Something had to stretch. Something had to disrupt your comfort zone. Not to hurt you, but to reveal you. You've been underestimating yourself for years, settling, minimizing, playing safe, staying quiet when you should speak, accepting less than you deserve. And somewhere along the way, you became comfortable being unseen. But growth refuses invisibility. This season is teaching you confidence without arrogance, strength without harshness, independence without isolation. You are not being punished. You are being upgraded. And upgrades are uncomfortable. Old habits resist change. Old fears fight back. Old mindsets try to regain control. But something inside you knows. You are not the same person you were a year ago. You think differently now. You tolerate less. You see patterns faster. You walk away sooner. That's not bitterness. That's maturity. There is also something else happening, a battle you cannot see, because growth attracts resistance. When you move towards purpose, opposition increases, not because you're cursed, but because you're becoming aware. The moment you decide to evolve, distractions intensify. The moment you commit to healing, old wounds resurface. The moment you pray for elevation, your comfort gets challenged. This is not coincidence. Expansion always meets resistance. But resistance does not mean retreat. It means you are moving. Storms do not chase parked cars. They hit moving ones. The fact that you feel pressure is proof you are progressing. And here's something powerful. The enemy does not attack what is irrelevant. So if you felt targeted, if you felt tested, if you felt like everything is hitting at once, it may be because your breakthrough is closer than you realize. But here's the shift. You don't fight this season with fear. You face it with awareness. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Prepare me." Think about who you were before this season. Think about how you reacted to stress. Think about how quickly you doubted yourself. Think about how easily you relied on others for validation. Now, look at you. You sit in discomfort without collapsing. You process before reacting. You can be alone without feeling abandoned. You can say no without over-explaining. You can step back without panicking. That growth came from pressure. Some of you had to be alone to discover your own voice. Some of you had to lose approval to discover your confidence. Some of you had to be misunderstood to discover clarity. It felt like isolation. It was independence forming. You thought things were falling apart, but they were falling into alignment. People left because their assignment in your life expired. Opportunities closed because your direction shifted. Dreams changed because your calling matured. You are not behind. You are being redirected. Restoration often begins quietly, in your mindset, in your boundaries, in your confidence, in your discipline. You notice you were calmer, less reactive, more intentional. You stop chasing what doesn't choose you. You stop forcing doors that resist. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. That peace you feel developing is restoration, beginning internally before it appears externally. Every breakthrough follows a pattern. First comes confusion, then discomfort, then confrontation, then clarity, then expansion. You are somewhere in that process. Expansion follows endurance, and you endured more than you give yourself credit for. There will be a day when you look back at this season and understand it, not emotionally, but clearly. You will see why that door had to close, why that delay had to happen, why that person had to leave, why that opportunity shifted. It was not random. It was structured. Right now, say this quietly. I am not being punished. I am being prepared. I am not forgotten. I am being formed. I am not behind. I am being aligned. Think about everything you've carried, everything you've processed, everything you've survived. If this season never happened, you might still doubt yourself the same way, still tolerate what drained you, still settle for comfort over calling. But now you are sharper, stronger, wiser, more discerning, more aware. This is not punishment. This is refinement. This is strengthening. This is preparation for something that requires the version of you that only hardship could shape. Your story is not ending here. This chapter is not the conclusion. It is the construction phase. Construction is messy before it becomes magnificent. So hold steady, stay grounded, trust the unseen work. What feels like pressure today will become power tomorrow. And one day you will look back and whisper to yourself with understanding and gratitude. This wasn't punishment. This was positioning.